Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and we are here to talk about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written in the 6th century BC, presumably by a guy named Lao Tzu. And we're talking about the Tao from the aspect of living a more reasonable life. When we talk about living a reasonable life, we're always talking about the idea that we don't want to change other people. We don't want to, because changing other people is not reasonable. It's not reasonable to ask somebody to change how they feel. We can't really know what they feel anyway. They may tell us. I mean, how many times have we told people something like, hey, what's wrong? And then we're like, oh, we're just tired. All right. Well, if that's true, right? But how often is that true? How often are we just like frustrated with someone but don't want to address it? Right? Like, I mean, I've done that a lot. I mean, I don't know if you guys have done that. It's just like we tell people things that aren't necessarily true. Maybe we're tired, but maybe we're also frustrated. And so when someone tells us what's wrong, it might be what's wrong, but really what's going on within them might be a lot more intricate, might be a lot more nuanced. So we can't know what's going on with other people, even if they tell us, because they might not know what's going on within themselves, and they might not know how to express it. They might not know how to articulate it. And because of that, we don't go into the world thinking that we can change things. We don't go into the world going, well, we can make it better. Because we can't. We don't know how to do that. And that's why we talk about living more reasonably. Because when we live reasonably, we allow people, if my partner is frustrated and telling me that he's tired, that's fine. We allow them to do that. I have to be comfortable. I have to become comfortable with the idea that this is what's going on. I have to take it at face value. And if it's not true, and I suspect it's not true, that's my experience. That's what I have to look at. And if I can look at that in terms of, a partner telling me that, oh, like they're tired and I think that they're upset, it's like, okay, well, what is my experience here? What am I experiencing? I'm experiencing a little frustration because, okay, I love this person, sure, but I want to solve the problem, possibly. I want to know if I'm in trouble. I want to know, like, there's all sorts of different experiences that I would have, right? What do I think is going on behind the scenes here? Why would they be upset? Why, in my mind, is this happening? Once I can get to the root of why I think it's happening, or why I'm upset, or why I'm uncomfortable, now I'm starting to kind of drill down on myself, and I can allow them the space to hide. I can allow them the space to be frustrated. I can allow them the space because I get to deal with my own stuff. So we look at the Tao Te Ching from this aspect of wanting to live more reasonably, not wanting the world to change for me. Who am I that the world needs to change for me? Who am I that you need to be different for me? This is your life. You're experiencing your life, and I want you to be able to do that to the best of your ability. And nobody knows how to do that better than you do. So I'm not going to tell you how to do that. This comes into stark contrast when we're parents, when we're teachers, when we're here to help other people, when we're in a position to help other people. But we can support people in their decisions and in life without having to dictate how they're going to live it. So, and that's what we do here on Tao of the Day. We try and give you the sort of groundwork so that you can have your experience, allow other people to have theirs, and you continue to grow and love deeply. You can love yourself more deeply. And as you love yourself more deeply, you offer others more love. Just as part of that, this isn't about selfish love where you ransack everybody else's life. You recognize that other people have the rights that you have, right? So if you ransack someone else's life, other people have the right to ransack yours. And when you realize that you're not being reasonable, and you start to become more reasonable, and you start to live your life in line with Tao, start to live your life in accordance with Tao, where it's like, oh, wait, this is more reasonable. Then things start to fall into place. You get to see yourself. You get to see yourself in everything. And then there's nothing you want to ransack because you are everything. When we talk about manifesting, that old sort of secret of manifesting things into your life. I always tell people, like, if you could manifest everything and anything immediately, it would very quickly become boring. And you wouldn't want to manifest anything. You'd want to just see what happens. And you can predict anything. It kind of becomes boring. But life, we're full of awe all the time if we can get there. Like everything that's going on around us is a surprise. And when we can look at it from the aspect of just being open to receive, those things come in and we can just enjoy this as it is. And you can embrace it as it is. And it's always a surprise. So I picked a random number today, number 61, being great. And this is, starts off, being great requires the ability to be humble. We all think we're great in one aspect or another. We all think we're special. We all want to have experiences that, bring us to that place. We all have ideas and we all think certain ways that put us, in front in one way or another. Even in our ability to be probably self-effacing, which is different than humble. We will put ourselves, we will feel that how great we are because of how self-effacing we are. We think we think highly of ourselves, as we should. We absolutely should. But being great requires the ability to be humble so as to receive that which is attracted with tranquility. You're attracting things. This goes back to manifesting and all that kind of stuff. But what is it you're attracting? And that's what I always look at, with my clients. I always tell them, like, what is it you're attracting? You're attracting this experience. So let's look at the experience. Let's stop looking at the manifestation of like what's happening and who's doing what to who and all of this kind of stuff. And just say, well, what is it you're experiencing? Because when you can recognize what you're experiencing without all of the people, without all of the victimization, without all the fear, without all the stuff, you can just take a step back and say, what is it that I'm experiencing at the core of this? Maybe you're experiencing the idea that you believe someone's afraid of something. Maybe you're experiencing that you believe someone is victimizing you or yelling at you. Then I would say, okay, well, in your mind, why do you think they're yelling at you? I remember when I recognized over and over and over again that when I would get into a relationship, these women that I would be in relationships with would run away for however long. Some people 3 months, some people weeks, some people years, They would go away from me for long periods of time. And in my mind, it was always, they can't receive my love, right? And however true or not true that is, like, they're not able to receive my love. They're not able to receive my love. Okay, well, where am I not able to receive love? Like, that's what I had to come to, because my experience, my belief was they couldn't receive my love. So I was like, where am I unable to receive love? And my mind was blown because I realized that I was such a giver in relationships that I wasn't receiving the love of other people. I wasn't able to let them love me. And so that was my experience. So being great requires the ability to be humble so as to receive that which is attracted with tranquility. I had to receive that which I was attracting. I was attracting these people who would run away from me. And they would run away from me because in my mind, they couldn't receive my love. So I had to look at where I was able or unable to receive love so that, how you doing, Aiden? I had to look at that so that I can see what it was I was attracting. So I was attracting this experience of people not being able to receive my love because I was unable to receive love and I couldn't see it. So I was attracting this and I was expecting it. And I was living a life in which that would continue to happen. Once I was able to identify that which I was attracting and I can see where in my life that attraction was coming from, that comes to the next line. Attraction is the most primal of expressions. When you put yourself out there in the world, you attract things. To receive that which is attracted is to know oneself. So as you attract this thing, you start to know yourself more deeply. You start to know yourself more intimately. Hey, Lo, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Happy New Year. Have we talked in the New Year?
I don't think we have.
All right. Well, there it is.
Sure.
Happy New Year.
I may have talked to you after the day after. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Did you
Either way, this is a good Happy New Year, and I'm glad to be speaking. How are you?
I'm good. Did you know that I was the New Year's prom queen?
How would I know? I do not know that.
Then we didn't talk because I elected myself.
Oh, you elected yourself the prom queen.
I did.
Right. Any high school in particular?
No, I don't want to deal with high school. I just wanted to be prom queen.
Oh, okay. I see.
We got to dress up for New Year's, and that's me in my prom dress.
I see. I didn't look at the pictures, but I see it now. Oh, look at that little kid.
Yeah, we have little kids here. That is actually one of our workers' daughters, though. She is not living in the program, but she comes by. We love the kitties. But what you're talking about, I don't know. It's been what I'm working on lately. Just identified that I can't pronounce it, but I'm somebody who can only experience extreme emotions, which clocks. Or I have a hard time naming, I should say, less extreme emotions. And that's been interesting, but the humbleness, like I would have said that I was pretty humble, and then I realized, like, no.
Humble is not a word that comes to mind when I think of
no, you're not. Like, but it was one of those things where I was like, oh, I don't brag, I don't, but I like to tell people what to do because I think I know best. And lately I've been realizing that I don't. Well, I've realized that for a while now, but like even more so, I thought I'd worked on it, and I was like, no, still need work in this area.
It always comes back, like these things that we work on, these things that we need to work on. There's, like, I think I realized this when I was a young artist. I looked at Picasso. Picasso made 3 paintings in his life. Really, like, if you look at his work, there's only 3 major topics that he kind of covered in his whole career. He just did it new and with from a new angle, and it's beautiful, and you can see this in almost every artist. They I don't want to use the word struggle, but they just look at things from their perspective, like from the things that come up in their lives. And that's what happens to each and every one of us. There's only a couple things that we need to really work on, but those things are the things that we're going to work on forever, because those are the things that excite us. Those are the things that give us life. And the more we dig in,
excites me.
well, I don't know that's the thing you're working on, but as like humility is going to come from the work that you're doing in these other areas or whatever, So yeah, but there's only going to be a couple things that we're going to work on, and we're going to work on those for our own lives. There's no destination for any of this.
Yeah, and one of the things that I figured out is I've been really frustrated in my lack of, like, I'm not doing a lot. Like, people look at me and they think I'm doing a lot because I'm volunteering a lot. Da, 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 da. Like, I'm doing a lot, but I'm not doing a lot for me because I'm stuck. I can't get it. I was advised not to, I guess I should say, get a job until after my court stuff is done, and that's, to be continued. And, like, there are these other things that I either can't do, or I need to get a job so I have money for it, or, like, it spirals from there. But what I realized last night sitting around a group of friends was that because I've been forced to sit and really forced to sit and not really be able to do anything, like, I've been able to be a part of so many beautiful things that when you were talking about, like, manifestation and whatever, I'm like, oh my God, I've witnessed miracles. Like, they may be more common miracles, but I found out last night that a friend of mine in the program and her boyfriend, who's also in the program, are pregnant, and I'm very excited for them. They're really solid, and it's really a good thing. And I got to be one of the first people who knew, because I had to be part of this group, which I probably wouldn't have joined if I had a job or I had this other stuff. And, I have another friend who's going through a really scary health diagnosis, but, like, her and her husband, they've just been rocks to each other. And it's funny. I didn't realize that I was holding my breath waiting for him to disappoint her, but I was. And nothing about him says that. It's just that that's what I've been used to seeing, is that men run when things get hard, and he has locked in. Now, I mean, it's just the beginning. Who knows what happens? But I got to be here to see that, and I got to be, a part of another person's proposal. I had a sad story with a kid that had to leave, and he did not want to leave, and I'm worried about him, but I got to be a human in his life that cared about him, and hopefully that helps him go in times, that somebody who barely knew him told him, like, you are special and you can do hard things even if you feel like you can't. And it's not fair, but you're better than that. And, like, it's just beautiful being able to sit and, I don't know that I manifested any of this, but to be able to witness it and see it happen and to have no part in it and to be truly happy. And not at all, I'm not the least bit jealous. I do not want another baby. I do not want another engagement proposal. I definitely don't want to be sick, like, but it's been very, like, I've been able to find the beauty in it. And that's something I never would have been able to do in the past.
Well, let's find a number.
Well, why don't you pick a number for me?
13. Lucky number 13. Finding equality at the extremes. You like a good extreme.
I apparently can only identify extreme.
To succeed and fail are equally undesirable. Creation and destruction are equally present within us.
Mm-hmm.
What do I mean by to succeed and to fail are equally undesirable? The more success you have, the more you protect it by hiding failure. The more you associate with failure, the more you embody it. When neither success nor failure is identified as the destination, being becomes the objective. What do I mean by creation and destruction are equally present within us? By having a body and mind with which I identify gets me involved in the manifestation. The manifestation convinces me of my actions, and so naming them, I both create and destroy, neither of which are unique. To see yourself with indifference, you will have faith in all things. To see the world with indifference, you will be able to care for it all. Did anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I think that I'm trying to get to a place of being and realizing I do have a really hard problem with being wrong, and it has nothing to do with ego or anything like that. I'm really uncovering that in my household, like, if you did something right, you wouldn't necessarily be acknowledged. You probably wouldn't be, or if you would be, it would be a backhanded compliment. But if you did something wrong that was enough to call attention outside, attention outside the house to the house, you got really, it was not good. So, basically when it comes down to it, I'm still really worried about having the answers. I'm still really concerned about being right. And it has nothing to do with wanting everybody else to be wrong and everything to do with, I think that I was basically trained that way, that, if you don't know the answers, you shut the hell up, like you don't say anything, because it's better to not say anything. So like have this huge fear of being wrong. It's really embarrassing for me. It's really shameful. And that's what I'm working on, is getting over that, because I want to get to a place where I'm like, nothing is really that serious.
Yeah, it's all stupid.
In the end, it all works out. It always has. So all this stress and worrying and trying to control, it's pointless. And I realize that, but it is trying to figure out how does one let go? And I'm getting better at it. I was wrong the other day, and at first I started to feel really embarrassed about it. And I was like, no, like, I said the information I thought was correct. Somebody else had more correct information. That's all there is to it. Like, it was a mistake. It's okay. But it's going to take a long time of me doing that before it becomes instinct.
Well, absolutely. Because as it says here, the more you associate with failure, the more you embody it. And you have, because when you were wrong, when you were a kid, you embodied being wrong. You embodied and so you probably were so afraid of being wrong that you didn't attempt to be right. You didn't attempt to have your voice heard. There are things that you would do to not get in trouble, right? Not be embarrassed, not be the center of that unwanted attention, right? And so you embody that, and you overcompensate by being quiet and all of that kind of stuff. But now you have to put yourself out there in order to challenge those things. And I'm hearing it in your stories, right? When neither success nor failure is identified as the destination, you're just contributing. right? You just contribute your voice and you learn as you're doing that. Then being becomes the objective. So then you just have to be you. Just go out there and be yourself. And when it talks about like having a body and mind in which I identify, and you identify with your actions, you identify with being right or wrong, or you identify with doing the right thing, saying the right thing, all of that kind of stuff, it gets you involved in the manifestation. And the manifestation convinces you of your actions, meaning it convinces you that you're right, it convinces you that you're wrong, it convinces you that you're doing a good thing, it convinces you that you're doing a bad thing. And so by naming them, by defining them as good, bad, right, wrong, and all of that stuff, you both create and destroy. And that is where you're kind of on that fulcrum right now. You're in between, like, learning how to be while you're still managing all of those manifest identities of right and wrong. And that's beautiful. And that's the direction we go. You don't end up at the destination, right? It says here, like, you want to remove destination. When neither success nor failure is identified as a destination, then being becomes the objective. Being you completely. And you don't even know who that is right now because you've been living under the influence of so much, rules of right and wrong. So when you remove those rules, who's low? And how does she present, and how does she be in the world? And that's what you're learning.
Well, thank you, Martin John. It was always enlightening.
It's always beautiful. Yep, you go. Have a great day. We'll talk again soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. When we look at Lo's experience, like there's a lot of extremes, right? There's a lot of extremes in our lives. And when we can not identify those extremes as being anything specific, then we can be who we are. Melissa, how are you today?
I'm Martin John. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing well.
I'm glad to hear that. So I found your comments quite interesting as far as like patterns and habits and things with people, and it got me to thinking about how I seem to have a habit or a pattern of picking emotionally unavailable people. But I was thinking that, about what you said, does that mean that I'm emotionally unavailable? And I wouldn't say that about myself. I think that, I don't know.
Okay, so that's a very kind of direct, like, I pick people that are emotionally unavailable. I would ask you why you think they're emotionally unavailable.
Why do I think that? Because similar to what you said, not that they kind of run away, but like they're not, maybe emotionally mature is more apropos than emotionally unavailable.
So what did they do that showed you that they were emotionally immature?
I don't think that like the two relationships, major relationships that I'm thinking of is, and it could be that they were both addicts too. I mean, that could be part of it too. I don't know. But I think maybe that's what it was, that they were maybe too caught up in their addiction to share their emotions. And even though, they both, said that they loved me, and I think that maybe in some part of their being they did, but I don't think that they were capable of that love because maybe they were too caught up in their own addictions.
Okay, so we're jumping into like a lot of story, first off.
Yeah,
already.
I'm good at stories, Martin John.
So I don't know what upset you, and I don't know where this started, and I don't know what triggered you to think this, like, of these people. And those are the things, right? So you're already you've already created a story, and you've already lumped a lot of individual things into one basket of like, they're emotionally unavailable. And I would ask for an instance in which you had an experience that told you that informed you of them being emotionally unavailable. And then you go into another story of, well, they're all addicts and stuff like this. And so it's like, this is why we talk about the primal existence and the primal sort of things, because what is the primal experience that you had without all of the story of addiction, emotional availability, and all of the, self-help sort of commentary that you've laid on top of your experience? You had a deep experience that happened in a moment. Like that time you were in the restaurant and the guy you were waiting for didn't show up. That was an emotional, real thing that we could build off of. This is all manufactured, right? It's manufactured like in terms of you've already thought about this, they're emotionally unavailable. You've thought about this, they're addicts. You've thought about, and so all of that has been manufactured. Maybe they're addicts, sure. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable. Sure. Maybe they love you. Sure. But all of that stuff is stuff that it's kind of like The Princess and the Pea. There's just layers and layers and layers, and you can feel this thing, but you don't know what it is. And you're like, this is uncomfortable to me. This is uncomfortable to me. But we have to dig to find that the place where you put the pea, where the pea got placed, where where the primal experience was. That primal experience is telling you about yourself. And in order to hide, because your psyche, your nervous system doesn't want to address it, but you're attracting it. So this is what goes back to this number 61, being great. Being great requires the ability to be humble. You're not being humble by calling other people addicts. You're not being humble by calling other people emotionally unavailable. There's no humility in that. As to receive, and when you get to be humble, you can receive that which is attracted with tranquility. This isn't being attracted with tranquility. It's being attracted with victimization. It's being attracted with blame. Attraction is the most primal of expressions, right? To receive that which is attracted is to know oneself. So you are attracting things, and to know what you're attracting is going to be really important. But we can't really, we can dive in. I mean, if you want to work together again, we can. And we can dive in to figure this out, and figure out what is at the root. Because remember, when we look to the root of problems you are having today, we looked back to when you were 6. Because that's where the problem started. And when we realize that you're not having a problem today, you're holding on to a frame of reference that you picked up when you were 10, and you are overlaying it on today. Maybe the core is emotional unavailability. Maybe. But I wouldn't venture to say that. I would venture to say that is, it's kind of like diagnoses. Like you're giving yourself a diagnosis, but the root of the problem is something else. Yeah, sure, you have ADHD, but the root of that problem is, is not necessarily, the root isn't necessarily chemical. It's become chemical because we have inadvertently leaned on certain chemicals within certain proteins and peptides within our body that have dislodged or unbalanced our ability to absorb certain chemicals, certain peptides, certain proteins. And so it's harder for us to be calm. It's harder for us to be still. But that diagnosis, that's not the problem. The problem is that we have unwittingly put our bodies into a certain place. You know, it's kind of like, it's easy when it's cocaine, right? And it's like, oh, you have a problem with cocaine. But when it's like, you have a problem with media, you have a problem with sugar. Well, we don't want to talk about that, right? We don't want to talk about the fact that like so many diagnoses have to do with that sort of stuff, because those are legitimate, right? Cocaine's not legitimate for whatever reason, you know, but sugar and media and the consumer world that we live in, that is legitimate. And so we don't want to, that's not the problem. It couldn't be the problem. Right. And so the root of so many of these things is the environment that we're living in and being raised in and having experience to. And so when we look at like you're like saying that they're emotionally unavailable, well, I don't know them. I don't know that that's true. Like you're putting that definition on them, and you're putting the definition on them being addicts. And so there are a number of steps that have to happen in order for you to do that to them. And those are the things that we want to look at, because those are the things that you attracted and then like became the victim of. And then you can very easily blame someone else for being emotionally unavailable. And maybe it's true. Maybe they are that thing. But your experience was something else that caused you to tell that story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it kind of goes back to, like you were saying, the childhood, and they, because actually both of these individuals had some very similar personality attributes that my father had. And I'm
yeah.
That's probably closer to what, you were just saying. And that's kind of what I thought of when you were saying that. And I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah. So that's what you're attracting. And so as it says here in 61, attraction is the most primal of expressions. To receive that which is attracted is to know oneself. So when you can receive this, you get to know yourself better. And when you know yourself better, you grow and you mature and you get out of the cycles that you keep putting yourself in. And what it says next, I'm going to just use this as your number. Sorry, you're being. I'm taking your ability.
I don't get it. It's okay.
Number.
It's all right. I'll save the number I was thinking of for the next time I talk to you.
It says all great beings realize when they err. Having realized it, they admit it and correct it to the best of their ability. So, although these people that you say have been unemotionally or emotionally unavailable and addicts, they're perfectly well within their right to be emotionally unavailable and addicts. You don't want to change them. If you did, that'd be unreasonable. It'd be unreasonable to ask them to change. So you've attracted this. You've made an error of attracting this. But now that you know yourself, you can continue to grow. And again, you have to look at your error. What's your error? Your error is I attract, like emotionally unavailable people. Well, no, actually, that's not the error. So you try again. Now you go back even further and you say, oh, I'm attracting certain qualities that I believe are in the world because I have this faulty frame of reference that my dad, that I built by observing my father. Okay. Now you admit that that's an error and you correct it to the best of your ability. It doesn't mean you correct it completely. Doesn't mean that, you're done correcting it. It just means that you correct it to the best of your ability at this moment. The greatest beings seek out those who can help identify their faults. They consider their enemy a part of themselves that requires attention. So the things that led you to believe these people are addicts, that led you to believe these people are emotionally unavailable, those frustrations that you have, those are the things about yourself that require attention. That's what we're talking about today. That's how this works. When you recognize that those things that get under your skin are parts of you that require attention, you give yourself that little bit of attention, you correct it to the best of your ability, and you continue to do that. And you continue to look into the world at places that you get frustrated. And when you get frustrated, you say, I wonder why I'm frustrated at that. I wonder why that came up. I wonder why I knocked on that woman's window. You know, like I wonder why that.
I did not knock out any windows, Martin.
I wonder why what she did. What is the primal experience that I had during that? What was that? What was that deep guttural experience I had during that? And why was that upsetting to me? Like, you know, like, and again, it is about exploring it. And it's about exploring it on a broad spectrum, because Tao doesn't work only in one way. It doesn't work in like, they do this, you think this, right? They're unemotionally available. I must be This isn't a classroom where we're trying to guide you. You have to figure it out. This is a riddle. To be centered in Tao is to nourish all related things, not to interfere and the meddle in the errors of others. So their emotional unavailability, their addiction, that's not your problem. I had a call last night talking about like someone who, you know, was afraid, you know, and it's like, well, I mean, you can bring up the fact that they should face their fear, but you shouldn't direct them into doing something specific. You could tell them that, well, fear is everywhere. So you're going to have to face it eventually, but you don't have to face it in one way. You just dropped off. If you wanted to come back up, you can. So all of these things, you know, when we're going into trying to figure out who we are, this being great is this 61 is a great verse for that. I'm going to read it straight through because I don't think I've done that yet, but there's lots of things to contemplate here, lots of things to try and understand. Being great requires the ability to be humble, so as to receive that which is attracted with tranquility. So if you can be humble, you can receive that which you're attracting, even if it sucks. Even if it's like, oh, my girlfriend cheated on me. Okay. Why? How did you attract that? Like what is your belief? Like you attracted that experience, right? Like I attracted that experience, let's say, right? I attracted my girlfriend cheating on me. Well, why did they cheat on you? Well, they cheated on me because, you know, they weren't thinking about me. And they, you know, like they just wanted to do what they wanted to do. All right. Okay. Well, where is your relationship with that? With people not thinking about you, or you not thinking about others, or people being selfish and doing what they wanted to do? What is your relationship with that? What is your relationship? What is your deep relationship with it? When's the first time you experienced someone not thinking about you? When's the first time you believe somebody was just purely selfish? You know? Like, if that's what I'm experiencing. And it's like, well, okay. Well, these are the places, and then I can journal about that. I can journal about that for weeks, probably. You know, days. I can just sit down and I can think about that. What is my relationship to the core feeling that I'm having? So I can be humble, not be the victim, receive that which I'm attracting, and run through it with tranquility, with calm. And then it just tells you why this is important. Attraction is the most primal of expressions. To receive that which is attracted is to know oneself. Once you can receive that which you are attracting, you get to know who you are better. And as you sort through that, as you get to know yourself, as you can, see where it is. And I always say, if there's something that upsets you in the world, there's something about yourself that upsets you. And you can look at that. We can look at it in terms of politics right now. We can look at it in terms of relationships. We can look at it in terms of all sorts of things. Why does this upset you? There are things that upset me, and I need to look at those things and figure out about myself who I am. I still am not reading this straight through. All great beings realize when they err. Having realized it, they admit it and correct it to the best of their ability. Again, this isn't about, we don't let great be the enemy of good here. We just do our best. The best of our ability. The greatest beings seek out those who help identify their faults. They consider their enemy a part of themselves that requires attention. Remember when I started climbing, for those of you that listen to me regularly, I started climbing because I had a judgment. I met someone who climbed and I felt that tinge of judgment, not for her, but for climbing, because that was how I knew gentrification was coming to my neighborhood. And I had judgment around gentrification. I had judgment around climbing, but I also had intrigue. But I didn't allow that intrigue to ever be more powerful than my judgment. So the greatest beings, and I don't want to sit here and say I'm the greatest being, but but there it is. I was saying it. The greatest beings seek out those who help identify their faults. And this woman who was climbing, I didn't seek her out. She presented herself in my life and she told me that she climbed and I felt that tinge of judgment. And so I think it was the next week, within the next 10 days from me seeing that judgment, I went and climbed. I went and I had my first climbing session and I've been climbing 3 times a week ever since. They consider their enemy a part of themselves that requires attention. That required some attention. It required attention from me. It required some energy from me to put that judgment to rest. To be centered in Tao is to nourish all related things, not to interfere or meddle in the errors of others. I'm going to read it all the way through one last time without stopping, so you guys can hear it. Being great requires the ability to be humble so as to receive that which is attracted with tranquility. Attraction is the most primal of expressions. To receive that which is attracted is to know oneself. All great beings realize when they err. Having realized it, they admit it and correct it to the best of their ability. The greatest beings seek out those who help identify their faults. They consider their enemy a part of themselves that requires attention. To be centered in Tao is to nourish all related things, not to interfere or meddle in the errors of others. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm Martin John. If you guys benefit from the work I do here, please check out the links in my profile. You can support this show through Venmo or buy me a coffee. You can also pick up a copy of my Tao Te Ching through my website. And there are direct links to that in my link tree. I appreciate you guys listening. And thank you, Lo. Thank you, Melissa, for coming up and talking with me about all this. Of course, this is not easy work. It definitely requires a lot of focus and attention, and I'm glad to be here doing this work with you. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.